Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Davenport Shines a Light on City Finances. Our host today is Tom Robbins, and our panelists will be joining us shortly. Tom?
Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Joining me today is the kind folks from Davenport, Iowa, as they talk about how they went ahead and solved some of their financial transparency problems and also why they made it a priority. I think a big thing to keep in mind as we start talking about financial transparency, and it's one of the questions that on the product side, which is the group that I work at Socrata, we spend a lot of time focusing on because transparency means so many things to so many different people. A big part of transparency as Davenport looked at was really to bring about the idea of public trust, and this is something that we see a lot in our customers across the United States as we start to build things out. Davenport, Iowa has been kind enough to join us to go through their experiences around this idea of financial transparency. Our presentation today is going to have several panelists joining us. First, we're going to have Brandon Wright, who's a finance director. We have Jennifer Nara, who's a communications director, Natalie Johnson-Murray, director of operations and communication, and Mallory Merritt, who's the budget management analyst who will be joining us from Davenport today. We have worked with them to develop what we hope is a fantastic agenda where we're going to do a quick round of introductions. Then we're going to take a look at a couple of key questions that we've worked through that will hopefully provide some great value for those of you that are listening. And then Davenport has been kind enough to agree to give us a short demo of their site. And then last, we're going to take on some audience Q&A. So with that, maybe we could take a minute or two to ask our panelists to do a quick introduction of themselves and maybe give a little bit of background, and then from there we can go ahead and hop into our first questions. So why don't we start from the top? Brandon?
Yeah, hello, my name is Brandon Wright. I am the finance director here in the city of Davenport. I've been here for about 5 years and director for a little over 2 years now, it seems like. Probably a little bit longer than that. Davenport really is, I'll kind of just give a general overview also of the city of Davenport as an organization. We're part of the Quad Cities. We have a population here of about 100,000 people. So we are a kind of a larger city in the state of Iowa, the third largest city. We have kind of a full level of services that we provide, everything from police, fire, solid waste to to zoning and all those things in between, libraries. We have a lot of things going on in our city and a lot of good news stories to tell and a lot of things that we want to get out to the public and communicate with them in a fairly large budget that kind of makes that sometimes difficult to get them the kind of the details that they're looking for. So that's just kind of a little bit about the city of Davenport for you.
Excellent. Thank you, Brandon.
Yep, and I'll turn it over to Jennifer now. Oh, yeah,
excellent.
Please.
Thank you. Jennifer?
I'm Jennifer Nara, Director of Communications for the city. I've been here a bit longer than Brandon, approaching 18 years rather soon. And over the course of that time have certainly seen communications in our city grow and change. And in the last couple of years, what was noted with the ever-changing media news cycle is that we really needed to approach sharing information with our community a little bit differently. And part of that process was really looking at all the tools we currently have and what we might be able to add to it to just reach more people and share more good news. And that really led to the development of Davenport Today, which is a new platform launched the end of November to great success. And the open checkbook is an interesting component of that.
Excellent. Natalie?
Good Good morning. I'm Natalie Johansson Murray with CAD Communications and have had the real pleasure of working with the City of Davenport as we have built, designed, and constructed the overall brand of Davenport Day as well as the website itself. And we continue to work with them as a communications partner to really elevate the platform and its success as we look at different modes of communication to really reach the City of Davenport's residents. Nice to be here.
Perfect, thank you. And last but certainly not least, Mallory.
Yes, I'm Mallory Merritt, and I'm the Budget Management Analyst here at the City of Davenport. I came to Davenport in June of 2013 through the ICMA's fellowship program, and I've loved spending my time here. I mostly help manage the current year budget and build the next year budget, and in between that work on some special projects, and had the pleasure of working on this one. So happy to be here to share with you kind of what we learned through this process.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and hop into questions. For those of you listening, obviously, once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them in. Brandon, how about if I start by asking you a question, and certainly others should hop in. As the finance director, can you talk a little bit about what transparency means to Davenport, and then why is it a priority at this point?
Yep. Yeah. So you know, if you're working in city government right now, and you know, you're well familiar with the term transparency, and that may mean different things to different people. Here in Davenport, I think there are kind of three different ways we have of looking at transparency. Kind of the first thing is that we're open. What that means is that people can come around and they feel free to ask questions, and that when they're asking questions, that we try to give them the best responses that we can when they need some answers. Number two is that it's available. Information that's not available to them on a regular basis when they want it doesn't do much good to our citizens. So it's important that our information be available. And then for the third part of transparency for us is that it's really easily consumable by the public. What we want is for the public to be able to look at information, understand what it is, and apply it to the questions that they have. And we'll touch on this a little bit later on in the presentation, kind of how it is that the Open Checkbook platform really helps with that. So those are kind of the three areas really of what transparency means for us. And it's a priority because really it's a chief responsibility of the city to make sure that we enhance and preserve public trust. We are spending taxpayer dollars. We are working for them. When they have questions, they should be able to receive the answers that they're looking for.
Perfect. Just as a side note, when you looked at transparency, was it important to change how you were presenting it? I don't know. I've heard from some folks that taking it online is important given the median age or the population or the interest that people had. Did you find anything around that?
Yes, because we've, for a few years now, we've actually been interested in trying to get our financial information more available on our website. It's a growing trend that the population expects to be able to find information on websites. They should be able to go there, drill down to the information they want, see what it is, and digest it on their own time. Because really we are transitioning more and more from a platform of where you put things in the newspaper to where it's available 24/7 online. So that really was a big part for us, being able to make it something that they could access online, be that a smartphone, an iPad, their computer. They should be able to get to it.
Perfect. Well, thank you. We'll go ahead on to kind of our second question, I think, which follows on to that. And I think, Brandon, this is for you. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges you encountered, and then how were they addressed with the strategy for financial reporting? That's a question I know I hear a lot from folks, especially as they're looking at, should I do this, should I not do it, or are there other ways that we can do it?
Yeah, so I'll talk about kind of three different challenges that we've had here in the city of Davenport, and I think they're fairly, these are applicable really across most cities. The first one is kind of the perception of secret government. As you work in government, you kind of realize that there are many out there who have this perception that much of what happens behind closed doors, that the general public is not allowed to have access to information. So we wanted to, that was a challenge for us of how do we counteract that particular perception and begin to move it towards what it is that we want to be when we think about the word transparency. The second one is that we receive a large amount of FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests from the public, and we spend a lot of time, staff time, and I don't know if I'll use the word waste, but it's a combination of wasting and spending a lot of time just responding to those questions on things and producing the different types of reports and printing them off and and sending them to different people. So we thought to ourselves, there must be a better way to be able to communicate the general information the public is looking for in a format that's easier than them sending in a FOIA request and us taking 10 days to respond. Taking up staff time, figuring out how to get the correct information, getting it reviewed, and then sending it on to those who are asking questions. Another kind of a related topic is this idea of kind of media biases and how it is that we work within those. We live in the Quad Cities. Davenport is the big city of the Quad Cities. There's a certain perception by the local media that they need to have Davenport headlines to sell newspapers, and so a lot of times the biases that are just kind of reinforced in different headlines and things like that. So we wanted to kind of counteract some of those items as well. But one of the things that we've run into, and this solution has helped, but I don't know that that's been the perfect solution for it. But one of the questions is that never-ending why. When the public starts asking questions, about how we spend our money and why we spend it, there are many times when the information on Open Checkbook really can answer and address most of their concerns and get them the information they're looking for and address the why questions. But sometimes, for example, if I want to know in particular, why did these 3 aldermen go to this particular city in order to participate in a conference there, and what did they learn? Well, obviously, I'm still going to have to talk to someone who's involved with that to understand more. So it both answers some whys, but it also creates some new whys as people learn more about where people are and what they're doing and what we're spending money on. That in the very end of it, they still want to know kind of how does it impact them and what is the value taken away from that. And sometimes those questions are answered, and sometimes they're not. They still have to contact us for additional information.
No, I think that's a great question. As a follow-on to that, one of the questions we just received was the idea that did you have to create additional processes to kind of answer the why, the additional why question? How do you think about being able to answer those?
Yeah, luckily we put Mallory's phone number on there, so they call Mallory.
We also created an email that was specifically for the Open Checkbook. So every day or two, I check that email just to see if there are any questions that have come through that way as well.
Excellent. Now, are you finding, I guess the other question that we just got from the audience is, are you finding that those questions are a little bit different than the FOIA requests? So are you seeing kind of a change in that?
Yeah, the types of questions that really come in off of the Open Checkbook's website are much more detailed than I think we're normally accustomed to, or even sometimes even comfortable with, to be honest with you. Because when a typical FOIA request, well, let's take the example of travel for aldermen. The typical FOIA request would look something like, please show me all the the payments made for different travel expenses related to these aldermen. The new type of requests and things that kind of come in through the website are, hey, we see that they ate at this restaurant, or type of a thing like, what was that for? So it's much more detailed, the types of things that we're answering on that Open Checkbook website.
Okay, perfect. And for those of you listening, if you have any additional questions, always feel free to send them in, and then we'll try to pass them along either during the questions or obviously at the end. So Brandon, I guess another question for you is how does really the Open Expenditure app differ or enhance the financial reporting that you are already doing?
Yeah, and like other Iowa cities, Iowa code kind of dictates what it is that we need to publish on a regular basis. And so we publish annual payrolls down to the name of the employee and the amount. And we also publish on a regular basis our AP checks, our accounts payables. But what this does really is it really is very different from that regular type of reporting that we have to do, but also the information that's in our typical CAFRs, in our financial reporting modems that we have for communication. Those are really very high level. You're talking about funds, you're talking about fund types. You're talking about, they can see in there things down to maybe, departments or different program areas where monies are spent. But if I want to know how much we've spent at a local home goods store, there's nowhere in the financial reports that the city normally produces that someone can go and aggregate that information, summarize it, and look at it for an entire year. And not even if they followed the newspaper, every time that we publish our who we've written checks to, that's quite a task for them to kind of keep track of over time all the different payments that we've made to them. Right now, all they have to do is go onto our website, type in the name of the company, and they'll have access to 2 years of data, knowing how much we spent there in the aggregate, but can also drill down to see the individual payments that we've made to them, and even the detail that was on those particular checks. So if they listed in that they bought 4 hammers, they will see 4 hammers listed as one of the things that we bought at the store.
Perfect. So one of the other questions that we just got in, I think, Brandon, you would be a good person to maybe field that, is as you kind of think about, reporting that's different, are you finding that you're getting better citizen engagement, or have you kind of thought, are you seeing any changes in your citizens' reactions to different things around kind of publishing this data in a new way?
It's still relatively early. We've only had this for a few months now, kind of up and running on things. But there has been a general change that I've noticed, and particularly in our public meetings, and even honestly, even from the elected officials. They seem to have questions now and they always reference, I was on the Open Checkbook site and I saw this. I was there and I noticed that we spent this much on this program area, and I've got some questions about how we did that. So they are coming to the table having already done a good amount of research, and now they're questioning kind of some of the details and the whys around those particular expenses and why it was that they were made. So it does, I think, change the way that the public interacts with city staff and even the elected officials. They are, they're not so much of these broad questions, but they're very focused questions, and they want to know about, this particular, they're concerned about the payments we've made to this particular vendor, or to this particular, lease that we have with a company in town. They really just have a lot of questions around those things.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it. I don't have any additional questions yet from the audience, but certainly we'll pass those on as we do. I wanted to move on to our next question, and I think, Mallory, this would be a great one for you. How did you deploy the Open Expenditures? And a lot of times what we hear is, it's more than just the dollars. There's an impact on staff time or workflow. And we're hoping that you could talk a little bit about your experiences with that.
Sure. We had already been in kind of some preliminary discussions on figuring out a way to get our expenditures on a website or on some type of application where it could be consumed by the public on a weekly basis. So as we cut AP checks on Wednesdays, could we find a way to get this information out on a website where people could view it on Friday or the Monday of the following week? So when we were kind of approached by Socrata, we thought, okay, this was kind of a good timing for that. We were the first city to launch the Open Expenditures application, And we were kind of unique in that we just had a couple of weeks to build this from the ground up because it was going to be presented at the ICMA conference in September. So we did spend a lot of time, the project partner and I, we worked on this pretty much nonstop for about 2.5 weeks. So we put a lot of time on the front end, but then now we were able to kind of reap the benefits of that, and that it's automated, so it uploads to the website every Monday. So we really don't have to do anything other than occasionally they have to push a button. We get an email that shows that it uploaded successfully. So there's really not a lot that we have to do on a week-to-week basis.
And this is Brandon again. That really was very, very important to us on our side. I've kind of known, I've reviewed a lot of these different types of softwares in the past and tried to look at them as far as, are these good ideas or not? One of the things that really has kept me away from doing this before is just the idea of, it's an inordinate amount of staff time for them to constantly update websites and keep that information current, and it's got to be current. If you're going to put it out there, it has to be accurate, and it has to be today information. But as we worked with the crowd on this, one of the big selling points for us was this idea that we could automate that back-end process so that once we created it, it didn't require our constant attention in order to keep things going. We could focus on other important areas for us and not just dedicate staff time towards that.
Okay. No, I think that's a great thing to kind of understand is, reducing the impact on staff, right? Because you want to keep the data up to date. I just got a question from one of the attendees, kind of following that point, and it's, kind of a question. I know it's still early. What would you say is the most common reason visitors come to the site? Do you have kind of any insight into what areas you think are the most interesting for people?
Yeah, this is Mallory. Just in my experience, if I had to guess, it would be the payroll information. People are very interested in how much certain positions make, what certain people make, how it compares to other people that are in the same position or in similar positions. And then outside of that, if I had to guess, it would be searching on a specific vendor. So how much did we pay Home Depot? How much did we pay Lowe's? How much did we pay Menards? Or, just any vendor that we have. I think they're pretty curious about that also.
I think the other major one around there is around employee training and travel. We see a lot of requests and questions around that as well.
Okay. And I guess an interesting question that just came in, when you talk about payroll, do you publish payroll deductions such as who has a child support and the amount, other deductions, or do you just publish gross wages by pay period? Was a question we got from the audience.
Yeah, we kind of went back and forth on how we thought we could best publish our payroll information so that it accomplished the purpose for it. And we decided just to post the gross earnings, and then also we show overtime, which is included in that. But we do not show anything like if you had your wages garnished. We thought, we don't really want to get into that. That's really not the point of it. The point of it is to show, the position and how much it earns. Okay.
I think that's great. I know a lot of people are trying to struggle with that exact question. And I have to admit, this is like one of the best audiences that we've had in a while. So we just got another question, and Brandon or Mallory and anyone else, did your move to greater transparency come from the city staff, managers, or residents? Can you talk a little bit about what pushback you received, and then how did you get management to buy in?
So I'll kind of, I think, walk you through kind of the beginning. So for a couple of years, we've wanted to do something. We've looked at some different products. We've never really been quite satisfied with what they offered. We had thought to ourselves, could we do something basic that's done online? And then this is all right now, it's kind of the staff level. Could we do something basic online that would kind of get us what we needed? Although noting and recognizing to ourselves that we couldn't make it very flashy. It wouldn't be really sophisticated, but we could do something. It was around that time that as we were kind of developing that particular site that we had come across Socrata, and actually Mallory had kind of talked with them a little bit and thought maybe this would be a really good fit for us. And so she came and talked to me, and I believe the first time she talked to me about it, I actually told her to go away on the topic, because I had seen so many before and been unhappy with them. But she kept coming back, and so at some point then I thought, okay, well, I'll take a look at it. And so when I saw it, I thought, you know, actually this sounds like this might work. Then became kind of the point of trying to convince our city manager, who was very much on board with the idea of transparency and easily adopted it from that point. But really then kind of working with the elected officials who had some reservations as we kind of contemplated to them the website. And when we did the demos with them, we could show them that I could type in their name and it would bring up, you know, amounts that they had received and things like that. And so there was, you know, some discussion on the council level about, you know, is this a good tool or not? And luckily the council was, you know, there was discussion around the topic, but they ultimately realized that this was the public interest, and that overall this was going to be a good thing for the city of Davenport. So there was some convincing that needed to kind of be done at the council level. Once they were on board though with it, you know, we went very quickly to getting it deployed.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next question. I've still got a bunch of questions. I think some of these we're going to answer as we get in a little bit further. But just so you guys know, you're very popular. We're getting lots and lots of questions in. And I think maybe Mallory, how did you determine that Socrata, or the Socrata Open Expenditures, was the right solution? It sounded like you kept coming back and Brandon kept saying no. What made you kind of feel that it was the right solution for Davenport?
Yeah, I think first was primarily the timing. We had already started working on the launch of kind of our overall communications platform and wanted publishing the expenditures to be a piece of that. So when we got the call from Socrata, it was like, okay, this is the perfect time to get moving with that part of it. Secondly was the cost. You know, it seems like for the type of product that it was, what it was going to do for us, that it fit well within the budget that we had. And then also that it was able to be automated, because back to what we were saying earlier, it really wouldn't be beneficial to us if we had to, you know, manually upload this every week and then try to figure out a process if that person wasn't going to be here, and then having to double check it and make sure it's accurate. The fact that it could pull right out of our financial enterprise system and automate and, you know, upload automatically every week was probably the primary selling point for us.
Perfect. Now, I understand that you guys had already embarked on something you called Davenport Today. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that for folks that aren't familiar with it?
Sure. And in fact, for that, we'll turn it over to Jennifer Nara, who's our communications director, and she's really the brains behind Davenport Today. So.
Perfect.
Davenport Today really is a website to certainly showcase our transparency, and also to engage the public in conversation. That was very important to us as a component of it, that we spoke to our community and allowed them to share ideas and thoughts with us. And the component for the open checkbook really was kind of bantered around as, you know, how can we perhaps put together a ticker at the bottom of the website that would show how much money was being spent through the city on that day, and then perhaps for the year at that point in time. And so that's really where, from our perspective, the initial conversation began in terms of looking at our finances and what did we and what could we share with the public.
That's great. I think and that kind of leads into our next question, which is really, you know, what are you thinking about goals? I've got a couple of questions from folks that I'll kind of line into that, which is, you know, has this led to improve financial discussions with the public? You know, how are you measuring success? Maybe if you guys could talk a little bit about that, that I think would help a lot of our audience.
Sure. I think our first two goals are probably to figure out a way to incorporate wire transfers and purchases that are made through city credit cards. Right now, those are the two things that are missing from the site, and those can be fairly large expenses. So we just wrapped up the FY 2016 budget process, so I was pretty occupied with that, but I need to pull this back on my radar and see if we can figure out a way to get those in there and kind of wrap that part up. Also, we are a design partner right now for the Open Payroll application that is also offered through Socrata. So as we work through that process, we'll be looking for ways to display our payroll information in a better way. So those are kind of some goals for the specifics of the application. And then in terms of measurement, right now we're measuring things just through number of page views, the number of returning visitors to the site, where are the visitors to the site from, are they here locally, are they around the country. Obviously we want people from all different states to look at our site, but we also want to make sure that people from Davenport and the Quad Cities are viewing this as well, since it is their tax dollars. And then in the future, we would like to start looking at the impact on the number of Freedom of Information Act requests. So are those going down, or are they going up? So we want to start moving towards more efficiency measures, but we are still pretty early on in the launch.
Okay. So I guess one of the other questions, or we've got a few, is maybe you guys would be kind enough to give us a quick demo of your site and maybe show us a couple of things that you know, people could look at and, you know, kind of some of the features that you think are of huge value. So
go to davenporttoday.com.
All right, perfect. I'm at Davenport Today. Where should I go next?
Okay, if you scroll down to the very bottom,
Excellent. Yep.
okay,
Should I select
right there, yes, in the middle, click on Open Checkbook.
Okay. There you go.
Okay, and the first thing that we had talked about showing was where we currently have our payroll information. So in that first little section where it says Davenport, Iowa, if you scroll down.
Right here. And see additional text.
There we go.
Okay.
Yes.
Click there.
Yeah. There we go.
And this here is our payroll.
Okay.
Yeah, this is where we currently have all of our payroll information. So if you want to sort by department, you can go up there to department and click on the menu beside it.
It's a filter.
Filter, yes.
Yeah.
And so right there you see all the different departments. So if you click on finance, for example, right at the bottom of that list, this will bring up every employee that works in the finance department, their regular pay, their overtime, and their total. And this also has the capability to sort. So if you wanted to know who's paid the most in this department, you can click on total and then sort, from greatest to least.
Okay. And then how did employees feel? One of the questions that we just got in is how did employees feel, or how did your staff feel about having their pay made public?
So, very uneasy at first. And we kind of anticipated that as we were kind of moving towards this. There's a difference between publishing that information once in a newspaper and having it available anytime on a website. And when we have received some, some questions, I don't know if it's necessarily pushback, but we've received some questions from some of the unions and the different employees along the way. Our story back to them and response back to them really has been consistent, which is, if we are all in the public realm as far as our jobs go, and therefore this is all public information. Anyone can have this information whenever they want it. It's just now available to them. So Overall, though, that has calmed down. That at first it kind of spiked over the first 30 days or so that it was out there. But from that time, really, I think people have become quite accustomed to it. And I've heard several people kind of refer, when people ask about, different things, they'll say, oh, you can go look up how much I earn on the payroll application.
Yeah.
So, I think now it's starting to become more accepted and, and kind of more of a thing where they can tell people, oh, if you want to know how much I earn, go and look. It's on the website now.
Okay. Well, as a follow-up to that, one of the questions I just received is, what's the date range of the data you're keeping on your site? Are you capping how much data you keep, or will you always keep as much data as you can?
Yeah, on the payroll site, this is for the prior calendar year, and so this always just shows 1 year, calendar year, not fiscal year. But then in terms of the actual open expenditures, we are using the prior fiscal year and the current fiscal year. So at the end of this fiscal year, it'll be 2 years worth of data, and then we'll start it over.
Okay, perfect. So what I was going to do is hop back into our PowerPoint, because I realize we're running a little bit over. What we may want to do is, if anyone has a question they'd like to send in, we'll go ahead and ask those over the next few minutes. All right, so we have one that just came in, and I guess I'd like to ask it to the group. What features would you like to see added to your site or to Open Expenditures, and why, if you had the choice?
Well, let's see. I think one of the feedbacks that we've received, and I think is my opinion as well, is that the layout of the open checkbook area, the kind of where the expenditure or the open expenditures portion of it, it is when you look at it at first, it's a little intimidating, and the way to try and drill down, once someone shows you, it becomes very intuitive. But at first, it's kind of a little intimidating for some people, and so we have spent some time with people being like, how do I get to see the information I want to, and we kind of have to walk them through it. So a bit of a more friendly user interface for the general population, I think, is one area where I think Socrata could make some improvement in what's out there right now.
And in terms of design, we had wanted to see if we could get it kind of the look and feel of it to match that of Davenport today, and to be a little bit more, customizable, so that it's obvious when you're in the open checkbook that it's just an arm of Davenport today, that it's all connected. So I think we found that there were a lot of areas that, whether it was font or font color or having the word FY in front of it, that those were things that we really weren't able to change yet. But I know that you're working through that, and we'll be presenting, a new set of changes. So we're looking forward to that.
Okay, perfect. And then what you showed, one of the questions that came in, and I want to make sure, obviously you guys answer, is that what you're showing is restricted to financial data. You're not actually making any other documents available through this app, correct?
Well, not through the open expenditure or open checkbook area. However, in the Davenport Today area, we have posted there. So in this idea of transparency, I don't know if anyone noticed it, but when you went to the bottom of the page, there were actually 3 different magnifying glasses. One of them was to see all of the city administrators' emails, and those are posted 7 days after the emails are either sent or received, and those are all out on the public website, and that's been really interesting since we've done that. And then you have your the open expenditures portion of the open checkbook that can go and see the financials, and then the third one was it's open records. So all of the FOIA requests that we've been receiving, we actually are now posting the responses to all of those FOIA requests online. And that has helped a little bit as people ask the same questions over and over again. We typically will say, oh, we've already answered one like that. Why don't you try looking there first? And if it doesn't answer what it is that you need, then give us a new one on that particular topic.
Perfect. And then kind of following on to that, are users able to export data from the site?
Yes. after you search and find whatever it is that you're looking for, beside every search, there's a little, it looks like just an Excel icon. You can click that and export everything into Excel. So you can add, create formulas, do whatever you want that way.
Okay, perfect. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us today, and I apologize to the audience, you know, as we had a little bit of technical issues, but I think overall it's been a fantastic webinar. I hope everyone had an opportunity to get their questions answered. I always love these kind of webinars where we get lots of questions, so you guys should be, you know, very happy as we got great audience engagement. And as always, we'll go ahead and share the video and the deck that we used within about 48 hours. And then on behalf of Socrata, I definitely wanted to thank everyone from the Davenport side for joining us today, and appreciate you taking the time to provide some great information for our attendees. So thank you.